Hello, the mustachioed anarchist here again. The Atheist Wanderer has made a video response to my first video, my political philosophy. So I'm gonna try to answer all his questions and concerns. Um, First off, I just want to say that my views are not always general anarchist views, and I don't feel that I can fairly represent the views of the majority of anarchists because of how much philosophies can differ between anarchists. Therefore, you mentioned that your video is general concerns about anarchy and can be applicable to anybody with the same kind of views. That point is incorrect. I just don't want people to think that my views are the general views of all anarchists, because that wouldn't be a fair representation to other anarchists with very different views than myself. You mentioned that anarchists are just experiencing one government and then saying to do away with all governments. Well, that's not true. Anarchists aren't just experiencing one government and say let's just do away with all of them. There are anarchists all over the world living under so many different governments who all feel that the best government is no government. Also, it isn't always just that they see government as a negative thing, it's also that they see anarchy as a positive thing. But seeing government as a negative thing is definitely a big part of it. Also, with anarchists, much like with any other political philosophy or anything like that, they're not just anarchists because they don't believe in all the rest, it's because they believe in anarchy. Just as a communist believes in communism, they don't just look at all the other political beliefs and say, well, all of these suck, so the only one left is communism, therefore I'm communist. That's not how anarchists come to be. We actually believe that anarchy is the best way. I see what you mean about other governments needing more room and eventually invading anarchists to get it, but hey, I guess they'll just have bigger weapons and just wipe us all out and problem solved, right? No, but this is a good point and one that I need to think more on because my beliefs and everything aren't fully perfect yet, and I fear overthinking like that because once you start overthinking, then that is when you start coming up with ideas like, well, then everybody should live this way or that. But it isn't my place to say how other people live, so I can only say how individually I would deal with this problem, and that is first through diplomacy and second through retreat. Just try to talk them out of invading my little dwelling, and if that doesn't work, then I guess I'll move to another place, because there wouldn't really be a whole lot I could do to stop them. I'm only one person and I wouldn't stand a chance against an invading force, so my only choice would be to leave my dwelling and find a new place to settle if any place still exists. And yes, this would only be a temporary fix, but that's all I really have on that. I know that the so long as they don't step on the anarchist part is very much ideal thinking, but I believe in Rousseau's way of thinking that humans are generally good. So I guess I would say I'm generally an optimist and believe that out of morality these governments, or maybe the people under the governments, would not allow a small peaceful village or whatever it would be to be invaded and destroyed by a much larger power. You mentioned Nazi Germany and how the rest of the world stepped in because they knew it was evil, what the Nazis were doing. Well, maybe I wasn't clear on this in my video, but essentially that would still be possible. Nothing would change other than the anarchists are now existing in anarchy in some places. Anarchists are just now added to the mix. And by no means am I saying that I would depend on whatever the new allied powers would be to come save me and the other anarchists from the new Axis powers, but if it got too out of hand, I don't see everyone just sitting back as a couple militaries go wipe by anarchists out of the face of the earth. As for anarchists born into fascism or something else that won't allow them to leave, then maybe I would go help them escape from their society if possible. If not, then I'm not really sure what would happen, but I myself wouldn't be able to morally let that happen, so I would do what I could to help. Other than that, I can't really say. By anarchy being the default, I mean that land uncivilized by the governments would be under anarchy. The unclaimed and untouched parts are anarchy, and if a government is destroyed somewhere, then anarchy can exist there. About living in anarcho-primitivism being all well and good for me but not for others, well, I never said that others would have to live that way. Also, this version of anarchy wouldn't enable fascism any more than the current world does, so I don't understand where this point comes from. It would still be the same world with anarchy added to the mix of people. One of the reasons I really like to debate my beliefs is to see what other people see as the problems with my beliefs. And from watching your video and listening to your points, I do see that there are flaws. And my new idea, I suppose, is not to create full anarchy everywhere where every government would have to start over, but maybe they could just give the anarchists some room to live. There are a lot of uncivilized spots that anarchists could live in if we were allowed to, without the fear of being kicked out of our dwelling because it technically sits on government property. Alright, the cage. So you wanted me to expound on the cage and explain who caged people are and everything. Well, the cage is a predetermined life path that we are all forced into. That we must go out and get jobs, buy a house and work, buy things and pay bills that will never be fully paid off and for our whole life. The cage is going along with society as you're expected to and never deviating from it or else dying. The cage is believing that having a government is the only way, that without the government we would all die, etc., etc. Cage people are the ones who keep going along with this, even if they don't want to. I would say that you as a Marxist are in the cage, but you're trying to change it. As a Marxist, you just want to put up new, prettier bars, whereas the anarchists, like me, want to be outside the bars. You said that I should read Walden, and I actually am. I'm in the middle of it right now. And you mentioned that, why don't I just go out like Thoreau did and just live like he did, because he did it, and that's basically what I'm wanting to do. Well, a lot has changed since 1845, and I believe Walden Pond was actually on Emerson's land that he let Thoreau go and live on. I don't have an Emerson to let me live on his land. Thoreau still had to go out and sell things like beans in order to survive, and I don't want to have to sell things in order to survive. I just want to be able to live. It also took him quite a bit of money to get started out there. It took him, in his time, about $28.12.5, I believe, is what it was, to actually just build his house, which in today that would be about $850 some dollars. And I don't have $850 some dollars, but that was just for the dwelling. He also had to put money into start his farms and everything. But yeah, Thoreau is something of an idol of mine, and he was the same sort of anarchist I am, and I aspire to be something like him. Also, one of your viewers posted a comment on your video that I'd like to address as well. They said, "It sounds like you might be having this discussion with a child-minded person." And, well, yes, many can see my views as childish, but I envy the mind of the child. It's so uncorrupted and pure, and it thinks in its own ways instead of the ways taught to it, because it hasn't had anything really taught into it yet to corrupt its own beliefs. I really prefer to have a childish mind rather than an adult mind where everything is so dull and black and white. Children can see the world in a much different way, and they don't always get locked into the same thinking that adults do over and over again. They come up with more imaginative ways, and sometimes these ways would actually be better if followed through on, but since they're so different and people see them as imaginative and fantasy-like, people never follow through on them. But like I said, I envy the mind of the child. They have a much better free mind than the adult person does. So if there's anything that I didn't answer that you wanted me to answer, anything that I missed in this video, go ahead and let me know, and I'll try to make a response to those that I missed.